Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Gods here, Josh, whatever you want to call me. So, first and foremost, I just want to say I'm sorry I haven't been uploading lately. I've been caught up with life and stuff, and I'm really sorry, but I'm back, and I'm gonna get right back into the speed arts, right back into the tutorials, all this whatnot. So the first video slash tutorial I will be doing while I'm back is how I do these like shading effects and how I made this banner all together. Now a lot of people think that I just use a soft brush, but I don't. I use a different technique that I don't know if I made up, but I never seen a video on it, so here's my video on it. So to start out with, you get your pen tool and you just make a simple object, like something that's smooth and curvy. So let me just do this really quickly. We'll do something like this. There we go. And then make it black. And then from here, all you're gonna do is go to your layer styles and just add a color that you want to use. Let's say I wanted to use like red. Start with like a mid red tone so that you can start adding your gradients and everything. Rasterize the layer. Go to the gradient tool. Put it on soft light. And then depending on how you want it, you can change the opacity, you can change the blend mode, or whatever you'd like. I typically just have mine on soft light. There's no limitations to graphic design, so do whatever you like and whatever makes you feel comfortable. Go to satin, add some like a little shading to it. You can change the distance, the size, the opacity. So I like 35, so I'm going to keep it on there. Go to inner glow, add a very soft inner glow, not too much of one. You can either use soft light, overlay, whatever you want to use. I'm going to use overlay for mine. Alright. And then something that I like to do, it's not mandatory, but it makes it look a lot nicer. I don't like having the glow on these edges, so I just grow it a little bit so that the glow is only right here and not on like the corners. And then all you do from here is copy the layer style, rasterize, duplicate it, create clipping mask, and let's say I wanted to have like a nice little shade right here. All I'm going to do is go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then as you can see, it gives me a nice little coat. And then you can go with your eraser on a soft brush and erase away all the parts that you don't want. Typically I erase like all around the edges so I can still have my glow. And then as you can see, it gives me a nice little effect, like a little soft effect. And then you can just keep duplicating it and keep doing it over. Make sure you always have it on clipping mask. So let's say I want to have another one right about here. Filter, Gaussian blur, and then we have another little stroke. Right there. And then you just keep doing it until you have something that you like. Alright, so just for tutorial and video length purposes, I'm just going to do it one more time. And then if you really want to, you can also flip the gradient like this, and then rasterize it, move it, so now it's lighter up top. And then you can do Gaussian blur again. And then boom, we have a little effect right there. that's how I do my little stroke effects. And then you can rasterize it, and just so I can have one in the middle right here. Just so I can have like a little effect in the middle. There we go, that's how I do all my strokes. And then to make it look a lot better, you create another layer, go to your brush, and then just add little white dots throughout it. And then put it on either overlay or soft light. I typically use overlay. And then you can do it again, but this time use lines. So like boom, boom, like this, and then do either soft light or overlay again. Typically I lower the opacity of the lines version though to like 50, and then we have a nice little glow effect now. And then what I always do, this is something I just always do because I like to mess around with the patterns. It makes it pop more, it catches the eye better. Typically for the colored ones I use a dots pattern. Now typically Photoshop doesn't have these, you'll probably have to go download them somewhere. Alright, and then I just make a new layer, and then I paint, bucket, fill, and then I go to either soft light, overlay, or screen. If I use screen though, I always invert it so that I have white dots. Do create clipping mask. And then you can lower the opacity again if you're on screen. Now, for this pattern I use though, I almost always turn it down, or not turn it down, but lower the size so that I can make the dots better looking. And then just do something like this. Combine those. So for this sake, I'm going to use overlay, and then I'm going to turn it down to about 25, and then it makes it look a lot nicer. Now if you're looking at it from afar, you won't notice it that much, but it still makes it catch the eye a lot better. Alright, and then for the other lines, like around here, I use another method. Here, I'll show you guys real quick. This method is almost the same, but it's a little bit different. I just don't really use the blur on this one, like I did on the, like when I was doing the shading on this one. I just don't use the blur. And another thing, if you want to make your shapes look nicer, I always recommend warping them. So if you don't like the perspective of it or the angle of it, you can always warp it. And warping is a really good tool, and you'll learn to love it. Alright, and then you go to layer style, choose the color you want to use. I'm going to use gray. I never usually go full white when I'm using white. I usually go to a high gray. Then rasterize, and then you're just going to do the same thing, use a gradient, satin, inner glow, and then copy that layer style, rasterize it, extend the edge if you want to. You don't have to, again. Alright, and then we have the little gray piece. Now, for what I did on this one, I just duplicated it and I did a color overlay of black. I rasterized it, and then I turned down the opacity to like 15, and then I just moved it either up or down, and then that created that little effect right there, and this little effect, and then you just overlap them. So you duplicate it again, move it up and over again, and then it overlaps and makes the grays a little darker, like that. As you can see. And then another neat little trick you can do is you can, actually let me make sure these are clipping masked. Okay, there we go. And you never change the opacity whenever you do that because it will just overlap. You don't really have a need in changing it. So there's no point in changing it. Alright. And then from there, all you gotta do, another trick that I used in that one, is I duplicated the layer again. And then I go to blending options, advanced blending, and I turn the fill opacity all the way down. Go to drop shadow. And then turn that to the distance to 0, spread to 5, and then size to, I believe I used 10 on that one. Create clipping mask, and then you can move it again, and as you can see it adds a little shading to it, and then you can rasterize it and then get your soft brush eraser and erase away the parts you don't want. So I erased the part of the center, and then as you can see it adds a nice little effect, and then I'm going to erase right there, and then erase on this edge. Actually that edge doesn't need to be erased. So as you can see it adds a nice little clean effect right there. I'm actually going to move this line over like so. Alright. So there you go, you got that nice effect. And then another thing I used on that one is I duplicated it again. And then I did the same thing, I just made it color overlay black. But whenever I did this one, I lowered the opacity to about 15 and just turned it. Instead of keeping it straight, I turned it like this just to add darker colors. And then I just kept doing it, let it overlap. Alright, and there you go. Now I have this little portion done. And then again, what you want to do is add some lights to it. So do create clipping mask, get your soft brush, and just start clicking on areas of it just to give it a nice clean little effect. And then go to soft light or overlay, whichever one you want to use. Sometimes you'll have to turn down the opacity depending on what colors you're using. So with white or gray, for example, typically you want to lower the opacity. And then add another pattern. Typically for my grays I use lines because I feel like it looks nicer. So create another layer. And for the lines I usually don't have to lower them, or make them smaller rather. And then either do soft light or overlay. I'm going to do soft light and then turn down the opacity to, let's say, 25. Actually I'm going to... Sometimes you can just play around with the layer styles until you find one that you like. I'm actually just going to use screen and then invert it. And then there we go, we got some lines on it, makes it look a lot nicer. And for the black, I used the same method as this one, except I also used an outer glow. So I'll show you guys how to do that one real quick. Fill path black. And just so you guys know, let me know down in the comments what tutorials you would like to see next. I'm going to be making a overlay tutorial on how to make nice clean overlays. So if you guys would really like to see that, let me know. If there's a certain tutorial that you would like to see, let me know. If you need help on a design, email me. I will gladly do my best to help you out in any way I can. So yeah, just let me know. And then rasterize that, create clipping mask, move it down a little. And then what I did here was I used an outer glow of white, turned it up, and then right there we have a little glow, and then I rasterize that, and then I blur it like that, and then it gives me a nice little glow. And then I get a soft brush for my eraser, and then I just erase the pieces that I don't really care for. And then you just keep doing that again. I'll do it again for you guys. Turn down the fill opacity, go to outer glow, and then you can turn it up if you'd like. You can keep it the same, doesn't really matter. Move it, rasterize, and then blur it. And if you guys don't know, to repeat this tool up here, your latest used one, that would be Alt Control F. Then use your soft brush to erase the pieces you don't want. And that's how I did that. And then again, another thing that you can do, get your pen tool, make a little line. I'll use this one. Alright, so there we go, we got a little line right there. Create a new layer for it, and then go to your brush, set it to like 2 or 3. I typically use 2, and then do stroke path, brush, and then you got a little line that you can set to soft light, and then boom, you have a nice little effect right there. And then another thing I like to do is I like to get my brush, and I like to have it set on white, create another layer, and I'll just put dots around it to add a nice little touch to it. You don't have to do this. Some banners it looks nice on, some it doesn't. Change the size till I would not go above 10. And then you can put this one on soft light as well. Creates a nice little effect. Some headers it looks really good on, some it doesn't. You just gotta mess around with it. There's no limit to your imagination in designing. So, and that's pretty much all I really did on this besides layer styles and stuff. But I'll make a separate tutorial on how to do layer styles. I don't like to make my tutorials that long because I feel like you guys would lose interest. So this is pretty much the end of the tutorial, just showing you guys how I do my little brush effects, my little strokes, how I make the lighting look good. Now right in this area, I probably should have made the red a little bit darker, but that's fine, a CC would have fixed it. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, put it down in my comments and I will gladly answer them. If you want me to review a design, if you want me to help you out, let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what tutorials you'd like to see next. And if you really love this tutorial and you love my content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell. Y'all have a great day.